After 8 years in the U.S. Army Special Forces, former Sergeant Chris Vaughn returns to Kitsap County, Washington. Walking through town, he finds the mill shut down. Sheriff Watkins and his deputy suggest he try the new Wild Cherry Casino. Recognizing Chris as a local legend, Watkins insists on driving him home. Chris asks about the old sheriff, learning he died in a car accident. Watkins seems unmoved. At home, Chris reunites with Sister Michelle, Mother Connie, and Father Chris Sr. over dinner. He learns the family has struggled since the mill closed. He meets nephew Pete, who surrenders his room and camps outside despite Chris's rain warning. That night, Pete gets soaked, refuses to come inside, and asks if Chris ever killed anyone. Chris won't answer. Next day, childhood best friend Ray Templeton visits. Ray admits after Chris left, he pursued music, then drugs, served time for breaking and entering, but is now sober 18 months. Later, Chris and Ray join old friends for rugby. Jay Hamilton, the rich kid who inherited and closed the mill to open the casino, arrives with his own team. The match turns intense with insults and hard tackles. Jay invites Chris to the casino. Chris agrees, then confronts Pete for smoking. Pete smirks and walks away. That night at the Wild Cherry, Jay welcomes Chris and friends to the VIP lounge with drinks, women, and unlimited credit. They enter a private booth with a dancer behind glass. Lights rise. Chris recognizes Denny, his childhood crush. Embarrassed, she flees. Chris wants to leave. Downstairs, friend Jimmy loses at dice. Spotting the dealer swapping dice, Chris calls him out, grabs the dice, tells everyone to bet on 7, rolls and wins. Security arrives. Chris fights them off until ambushed and knocked out. Booth, head of security, takes Chris to a back room and carves into his chest with a box cutter. Found bleeding on a road, Chris rushes to the hospital. Watkins demands a statement and toxicology. Michelle tells him to find the attackers. Watkins claims he is just doing his job. Ray visits, stealing flowers from another room. Days later, Chris leaves the hospital and recovers slowly with Ray by his side. Jay stops by, claiming Chris went crazy, offers him head of security job and cash. Chris refuses. Chris goes to the sheriff to press charges. Watkins closes the case, citing the casino's internal investigation, calling the casino a no-fly zone as the town's main revenue source. Chris vows not to let it slide. Watkins orders him out. Denny visits, returning an old jacket. They walk. She suggests Chris run for sheriff. The post is up for election. She admits working at the casino a year. Chris cannot hide his disgust. She says bills must be paid. Chris returns home to find Pete surrounded by paramedics after taking an illegal drug. Pete's friends say the drugs came from casino security. His mother begs Chris to call cops. Chris grabs a shotgun from the shed, changes his mind, takes only a plank of wood. At the casino, he disarms Booth, beats him down, smashes Jay's office glass. Watkins arrests him. His lawyer says Chris faces up to 18 years. A plea deal offers 3 months house arrest. Chris refuses to plead guilty. At trial, Jay's security team and prosecutors paint Chris as violent. Chris's lawyer never objects, keeps glancing at Jay. Chris fires him and defends himself. Speaking to townspeople he grew up with, Chris announces if freed, he will run for sheriff and clean up the community. He shows his chest scars, shocking the courtroom. Found not guilty. Weeks later, Chris is elected sheriff. His first act, firing the entire department. He pulls over Jay for a broken taillight. Chris breaks it with a log. Jay threatens Chris failed at football as a soldier and will fail as a cop, warning he will not live long if he pushes too hard. Chris makes Ray his deputy. They shake down low-level dealers, find Booth at a drug den. They plant drugs on him, trash his truck. Booth warns they are messing with powerful people. Chris tries to give his dad a gun. Chris Sr. refuses. At the station, Ray tortures Booth with a bullhorn. Denny visits with food, reveals she quit the casino. They kiss. Next morning, Chris's truck explodes. Watkins and his deputies open fire on the station with machine guns. Masked men attack Chris's home. Ray fights back, stabbing one. Michelle kicks another down the stairs. Chris creates a hole in the floor, gives Denny a gun, saves Booth, who reveals Jay's drug operation at the mill. Booth dies in crossfire. Chris shoots two attackers, distracts Watkins so Denny can fire, and takes Watkins down. At the house, Ray beats the last intruder. The stabbed man aims a gun. Chris Sr. shoots him. Everyone's safe. Chris races to the mill, finds the drug lab, confronts Jay. Jay triggers a trapdoor. Chris hangs on. Jay beats him with a metal pole. They fall. Jay shoves Chris off a 2-story ledge. Injured, Chris escapes into the woods. Jay grabs an axe and gives chase. Chris dodges, tackles Jay down a hillside, defends himself with a log. In a brutal, bloody fight, Chris overpowers Jay and breaks his leg with the log, saying, "This is my town." In the end, Chris shuts down the casino and reopens the mill, restoring his hometown to former glory.